big Halloween lover, and over the past few years, Halloween has felt a little less creative, a little less expressive, it's a little less weird, and really it just feels a lot more internet-centric, and also a big, giant, seasonal marketing campaign. I feel like it's kind of lost its magic, and I want to talk about it, how Halloween has become so corporate and commercialized, and it's just not as exciting as it used to be. But don't get me wrong, I still love Halloween, so let's get into it. Growing up, I felt like there was a lot of anticipation that surrounded Halloween. We experienced it one day out of the year in the month of October, and typically it wasn't until maybe like the end of September and just all of October, companies were getting ready to prepare for Halloween and what they would offer its consumers. And it also felt like a time of the year where all the weird kids and all the horror lovers felt like this was their time of the year to shine. It was celebrated. You could be as over the top and creepy and weird and expressive as you wanted to be. But now I just feel like Halloween has branded itself into spooky season, and don't get me wrong, yes, I've used that term before. However, I am somebody who's kind of like that all year round, and there are just certain people who only want to say that there's some sort of like Halloween spooky ambassador for just this time of the year when they're not even like that the whole entire year, and it comes across a little disingenuous in my opinion. Over the past few years, in terms of this whole like fake ambassador thing, we are seeing more and more expensive and wasteful Halloween decorations. Everyone is hopping on the pumpkin something bandwagon. People are making boo baskets, which I can guarantee you that just didn't seem like it was a thing a year ago. It definitely was not a thing when I was growing up, that's for sure. And it just is a bunch of wasteful stuff that doesn't need to be done. And I want to blame social media for some of that, of course. And then another thing that just makes me mad about like the corporate takeover when it comes to Halloween is that once October actually gets here, all of the Halloween stuff is kind of limited at this point, or it's incredibly picked over. And now these companies are starting to make room for the holidays. We haven't even gotten through Halloween. We just started October. Now you're already getting ready for the holidays. A lot of companies are starting to put out their holiday launches, and I'm like, we haven't had Halloween yet. Slow down. It did not used to be this fast. I remember when I was growing up, November 1st was not when we started Christmas. It was maybe like towards the end of November is when we started Christmas. I miss that. Can we get back to that? And I just want to say, like, I'm not shitting on people who want to have fun surrounding Halloween. Halloween is fun. It should be fun. I decorate my homes, and I'm not going to shit on people who want to decorate their homes for Halloween. I have more of an issue with the corporate mass production that comes out of this. And I just feel like Halloween just rolls out like it's the new iPhone launch, and obviously the same thing could be said about the holidays, but I feel like nobody really talks about the Halloween corporate takeover. I did just mention about like how there are people who like to act like there's some sort of like spooky Halloween ambassador. Maybe I'm just kind of over exaggerating here, but there are some people who simply use the term spooky as this like lifestyle way of branding just for this time of the year. And as I've said before, I find that to be a little disingenuous for the people who really are like this year round. Spooky has no longer become an adjective. It's become a whole identity. One that's been flattened and mass-produced, of course. Anything that is spooky is now an aesthetic. You can now buy it in a package at a store, and it's branded that way, marketed that way. We're seeing skeleton printed mugs or ghost mugs. We're seeing crazy Halloween pajama sets. Don't even get me started on pajama sets. I find pajamas to be wasteful in general. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day, but it doesn't really feel all that spooky in my opinion. We've turned spooky into cute. Spooky's not supposed to be cute. Also, there were a lot of roots in Halloween that stemmed from like gothic culture. There's also a part of Halloween that was about like rebellion and weirdness. But of course, don't get me wrong, the fast fashion companies also want to hop in and cash in on this too. They're now churning out alt fashion, which, if you know, there's nothing alt about fast fashion to begin with, because I also feel like alt fashion becomes a costume during Halloween, and that also sucks. So yeah, there's nothing alternative about mass production in capitalism. Another part that I've seen with like the corporate and the commercialization of Halloween is when it comes to social media is the whole aesthetics culture behind it. I do love fall. I love the coziness of fall. I love pumpkin stuff. I love fall leaves. I love Halloween stuff. I love a good atmosphere that makes me feel comfortable and makes me feel like something gives me peace. Like when I decorate my apartment for Halloween and fall, it's very cozy, it's very fitting to me, and there are also things that I have year round, so I'm not like wasting stuff. But I do believe that social media wants to glamorize it and make it just for the aesthetic, and that they don't actually genuinely like the whole concept of Halloween or fall, and that social media has created this whole like picture on like what fall and Halloween is supposed to look like. You have to have your classic pumpkin patch photo, or maybe you want to have one of those cinnamon brooms from Trader Joe's. I have one of those, but it stays up year round. Or they take like some sort of selfie in a witch hat. Oh my god, like I can't. But I've stated before on the channel before, algorithm on social media loves repetition. It rewards things that are very repetitive. So that's why we see it so often, because people know that it's gonna get pushed out so they can get that kind of engagement. I don't think that's individuality. I feel like Halloween has lost its sense of individuality, and I feel like people are just using this time of the year as a way to disguise themselves on who they really are, which I don't like. I think you can incorporate elements of the season and make it your own, which is what I wish people did, but I feel like people aren't doing that to begin with. And I think there are people, and I feel like even myself included, we get caught up in this loop where we genuinely do love this aesthetic, and this kind of is something that we push out and love year round. Sometimes we do get caught up in it because we know that it also performs well. And I have just gotten the impression that spooky season has just lost its magic in like the horror, the weirdness, the creative love that people have for the holiday. And it's now just more about like who can make this the most aesthetic competition. That sucks. I hate it here. Let's talk about the death of DIY and the rise of seasonal consumerism, because Halloween costumes, again, they could be a whole other video topic in itself, but Halloween costumes are the epitome of fast fashion, seasonally especially. I don't think people understand that Halloween costumes can be easily DIY-able. Are we still DIYing Halloween costumes? Because I did that all the time growing up, and guess what? I still do it. Halloween is literally all about creativeness and putting in effort. Now all of our costumes are coming from like fast fashion companies like Amazon, Temu, and even Spirit Halloween. Yes, Spirit Halloween is still fast fashion. And these costumes that you buy from these places are cheap in terms of quality, they're junky, and they're also incredibly expensive and wasteful. You are probably never going to wear that costume ever again. And almost all the time it ends up in, well, landfill. I rarely buy Halloween costumes unless if it's something that I think is going to be really complicated, and maybe I do need to buy something because I know it's not something I can DIY myself. I have had to do that once or twice in the past, but for the most part, I try to use clothes that I have in my closet. Or if there is something that I may need, I just go to the thrift store and I get it. And I love thrifting my Halloween costumes. Next week, I do plan on doing a video surrounding that, so get excited. But I just feel like everyone has forgot that you can make something instead of buying something. I am such a firm believer in doing that, and that's something that I've always done. Earlier, I just mentioned that corporations like to take advantage of alternative subcultures and make that into a Halloween costume. I think it's interesting that Halloween can sometimes overlap with alternative subcultures like goth, punk, emo, witchcore. But the result in doing that really waters down our subcultures. Alternative subcultures will lose its meaning and not be taken seriously during this time of the year, and I don't like that because many of us dress like this year-round, unapologetically. People only do this for the October lifestyle, and then they go back to being whatever thing they are going to do for the next month, and again, that's boring because so many old people are teased and are called too much for being ourselves, but when it's October, apparently it's okay for everyone else to do it, and then it makes us feel like we are not taken seriously because they see our aesthetic and our subculture as some sort of costume that apparently is only deemed acceptable during this time of the year, which I don't find to be okay either. Being alt is not a trend, so cut it out. Then another interesting piece that I've noticed over the past year when it comes to like the corporatization of Halloween is that companies really like to tap into nostalgia. Nostalgia really works for millennials and even Gen Z. I remember growing up, 90s Halloween, that was a time to be alive. Oh my God, I miss it. Can we go back? There was something so comforting about trick-or-treating in the 90s, where neighborhoods and subdivisions would be going all out. You'd see so many kids going trick-or-treating. Now it doesn't seem like kids are going trick-or-treating as much these days. There are now planned spaces for trick-or-treaters, or sometimes people go trunk-or-treating, which I feel like takes up the fun and joy out of Halloween. Companies want to tap into this comforting, nostalgic feeling because they know that's what's gonna sell. They're gonna find like, oh, this creates warmth and safety and nostalgia that doesn't really exist in this world anymore. Let's sell it because that's what the people are gonna want. That's what the people miss. And that also takes the nostalgic, and that also takes like the nostalgia and the sentimental childhood value out of it. And it doesn't make it as fun anymore, which also kind of sucks. But I do miss that time. If you still have your 90s or early 2000s fall decorations, I hope you are still using them. Keep doing you, because that is beautiful. And I don't ever want that magic to die. And you know, I'm sure in the comments you're gonna be like, that's not what I'm saying. But keep in mind, as you are doing things and you are submitting into consumerism and the corporations, just remember that still impacts a lot of people and impacts our environment when a lot of it is fast fashion or things that are just going to end up in landfill. I'm not saying we need to boycott all Halloween stores. Don't get me wrong, I do like to go into Spirit Halloween from time to time. I think Spirit Halloween actually can be really good for some accessories, especially if you want to use them all year round. I want just people to be a little bit more intentional with what they're doing. I feel like that's the point that I'm trying to make here. If you love spooky season like I do, I don't want you to stop loving spooky season. I don't. I just want people to understand like Halloween isn't just about buying more stuff. There's also a deeper meaning and significance behind Halloween. We won't get into the history, but if you know what that history is and what Halloween used to represent. But there are some things about Halloween that have evolved over time, and that was the whole creativity and expressive part, which I feel like has been lacking lately. So if you are going to celebrate Halloween and you want to dress up, make your stuff, thrift your stuff. I don't want corporations to define our aesthetics, and I don't want corporations taking away the individuality that can come out of Halloween. I want spooky season to be as magical for the weird kids who never got to fit in, or those who found comfort in the dark, and they were just overall different. And again, Halloween was that time where they could really shine. I just don't want this to continue to be another thing of mass production, which I know isn't going to change anytime soon, but that's why I'm talking about it. I want us to reclaim that. There is something real and creative and magical about Halloween, and I hope that we don't let it die down even further than what it has. So I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts on this? Do you feel like Halloween has become way too corporate-y and commercialized over the past few years? Do you miss what Halloween used to be? Comment down below and let me know. And if you liked this video, do make sure you give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!